Welcome to the NHL Wraparound podcast featuring Neil Smith, President General Manager of the 1994 Stanley Cup champion New York Rangers, and longtime ESPN NHL veteran Vic Morren. Together, they share no-nonsense opinions on news and issues around the National Hockey League. Whether you're a casual or diehard fan, each episode of NHL Wraparound will leave you more informed. Now, here's your hosts, Neil and Vic.
Welcome to the NHL Wraparound Stanley Cup Preview Show brought to you by UBS Financial Services, Inc. Vic Morren along with Neil Smith. And on Thursday, the final matchups were determined. The Edmonton Oilers clinched second in the Pacific with a 6-1 win over Vancouver. Matt Savoy with a hat trick. First period, Connor McDavid. Here we go again. Only 4 assists in that game. They will meet the Anaheim Ducks, who beat Nashville 5-4 on a late power play goal by Troy Terry. And those results kept the Los Angeles Kings in the second spot in the wild card. They will face Colorado. The Kings lost 3-1 in Calgary on Thursday. We have 6 newcomers to the 2026 playoffs that were not there a year ago. And for the second consecutive year, the President's Trophy winner, the Winnipeg Jets, do not make the playoffs. Of course, the New York Rangers winning the President's Trophy in 24 and not qualifying last year. So with that, Neil, death, taxes, and Craig Button joining us for the playoff preview.
No, it's great to have Craig here with us again this year. Beautifully dressed for us. Came in his best attire for NHL Wraparound. Craig, thank you again for doing this. This is so much fun. We look forward to this all year.
I do too, and I'm so glad that I can be part of it. It's a fun time of the year. I mean, the playoffs are fun. I mean, you get the tension, you get the drama, and here we are. So let's tell everybody how it's going to unfold.
Yeah, let's do that.
So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to set up each series and then throw it to you guys to have a discussion. We'll go quick pace, and you'll make a pick at the end, which, as we all know from last year, I'm always looking forward to these. Who's going to be doing the fence sitting and the hedging and whatnot. So we're going to get going with the Carolina-Ottawa series. Carolina, the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference against Ottawa, who is wild card 2. This is their first playoff meeting. The Hurricanes won the season series, 2-1, with 1 win coming in overtime. But the questions that we will throw out here to you gentlemen: are the Senators more battle-tested, having to go 15-5-2 in their last 22 to qualify? Neither team has a game breaker on offense. Both teams had a pair of 30-goal scorers. For the Hurricanes, Seth Jarvis and Andrei Svechnikov, and for the Senators, Tim Stützle and Jake Batherson. The goaltending battle: Brandon Bussi, first year against Linus Ullmark. Which Ullmark are we going to see here? Now, the Sens coming into this series among the worst in save percentage, but somewhere in the middle of the pack in terms of their goals against average. And I'll leave you guys with this for your discussion. The Senators among the most penalized teams in the NHL. The Canes among the least. So that 29th ranked Senators penalty killer, that's going to be tested here if they try to drag the Hurricanes into the alley and start to rough things up. Craig, take it away.
This reminds me of 2012. And you're going to say, what about 2012? I'm going to go specific. The Vancouver Canucks were coming off a Stanley Cup final in 2011. And they got up against the LA Kings. And some of the things you just raised, Vic, were things that were raised about the LA Kings back then. But you just said, are they battle tested? Yeah, I think this is the worst matchup for the Carolina Hurricanes. It looks like the Florida Panthers. Do you think the Florida Panthers cared about taking penalties? They cared about beating up the Carolina Hurricanes. And I think that this series works to the Ottawa Senators' favor. They're heavy, they're hard, they forecheck. And do you know why the penalty kill was so bad? Because the goaltending was so bad. I mean, Linus Ullmark was out for 35 days or so, and that really affected. Jake Sanderson said it best: we just need a save. Well, Linus Ullmark has played really well. And to me, this is a series that I see much like 2012 LA versus Vancouver. I think Vancouver came in there feeling good about themselves. They didn't leave the series feeling very good.
You know, I can't disagree with anything you're saying, Craig, but I just believe that Carolina's too good of a team to not be able to handle the Ottawa Senators, to be honest with you. I think that everything you've said, battle-tested, they're tougher, they're going to try to grind Carolina into the ground. The one player we didn't mention in Vic's Open there about this series, and I think he's the best player in the series, is Sebastian Aho. I think he's going to be the key to Carolina. I think Bussy's going to stand up real well against Ullmark. I do agree with you that it's going to be a test, and they're going to try to grind them. And, you know, Brady Tkachuk might start his nonsense with trying to fight somebody right off the opening face-off and all that. But I think at the end of the day, Carolina is going to be able to get through this series, and they'll be better for it going forward.
Well, if they do get through it, there's no question that they'll be better for it, because that'll give them something I don't think that they've had in previous seasons when they came up against the Florida Panthers and then the Tampa Bay Lightning prior to that.
I'm going to leave you guys with this before we go to your picks. Does Nick Deslauriers become the most important player in this series for Carolina?
If he gets on the ice. He may not get on the ice. I don't even know who on Ottawa. Craig, you might know better. Like, who on Ottawa is he even going to be able to fight?
Well, it's not going to be Brady Tkachuk, because Brady Tkachuk's not going to fight Nick Deslauriers. No, maybe Nick Deslauriers wants to try to get out there. But you know, Neil, when you're looking at the matchup, and one coach is saying, "Well, we'll get Nick Deslauriers out there against Brady Tkachuk." No, Brady Tkachuk's not going to be on the ice when Nick Deslauriers out there. So those are just fantasy type ideas. You know, Nick Deslauriers. I mean, we know why they got him. You need to be able to play in the playoffs. You need to be able to carry some weight that isn't about carrying weight.
Yeah.
Picks?
I'll start Ottawa in 6.
I will go full chicken on this one and go go Carolina in 7.
Boy, you didn't even wait until the show got warmed up before you went full chicken. I'm going to side with Craig here, and I've been looking forward to this one, and I believe that if the Senators can get Carolina off their game, this is a series for them to win. I think Bussy is going to get tested really for the first time this year in terms of playoff pressure. And I think Linus Ullmark is up to the challenge. I'm going to go Ottawa in 6 as well. Let's go over to Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, the number 2 and 3 in the Metro. This is their 8th playoff meeting. The Flyers have won 4 of the previous 7. The last time they met in 2018, in the opening round, and Penguins won that in 6 games. And that is the last time that Pittsburgh has won a playoff series. The season series this year, 2-0-2 for the Penguins. The Pens won 2 in regulation. Flyers winning 2 in the shootout. So as we look at certain pieces here, the season-long work of Penguins rookie head coach Dan Muse against Rick Tocchet, whose club went 18-6-1 over the last 25 to qualify for the playoffs. They were in wild card 8 on the morning of February the 26th. The Penguins, with their Hall of Fame cast against a youthful Flyers club. The Penguins' big edge here, special teams, 7th on the power play and 6th on the penalty kill. The Flyers' power play, what else is new? 32nd, dead last, and their penalty killing 21st. And finally, the goaltending matchup here. Stuart Skinner, who, of course, led the Oilers to consecutive finals appearances, against Dan Vladar, who at long last appears to have settled the Flyers' goaltending issue. Neil, we'll start with you.
I like this series. I think it's obviously the way it's positioned in the standings is exactly what it is. I think it's the closest matchup you've got. I think that the Pittsburgh experience with Crosby and Letang and Malkin, and especially Skinner in net, that playoff experience that they've got, those guys, is going to be invaluable against a team at the other end that doesn't have the playoff experience at all. And it's brand new to them. to be in the playoffs and to try to see what happens in this tournament. I got to go with the Penguins. I think it's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be in any means a wipeout for either side. I think that the Penguins are just, they played very well this season. And coming down the stretch, of course, the Flyers are like the Senators in this series, really, aren't they? They're going to get out there and try to grind the Penguins down. I don't think they'll be able to do it. I think the Penguins are the better team.
Well, it's funny, Vic. I have to jump in here because I think we all know just when the Flyers think they have a goaltender, we find out they don't. So I mean, we're now anointing Dan Vladar as the goaltender they found. You know how many times they have found a goalie and only to find out that oh boy, maybe we didn't find one. Hey, Dan Vladar has played really well. Rick Tocchet, I think, has done a fantastic job. For me, this was the hardest series for me to pick. And Vic, I'll tell you why it's a push for me. 18-6-1. The Flyers have been in playoff mode. Everything Neil said about the coaching, but Dan Muse, the experience of the Pittsburgh Penguins is really significant. It just feels to me like the Flyers have something going for them right now. Pittsburgh got back in the playoffs. Dan has done a great job. Talk's done a great job in Philadelphia. And I'm going to pick the Flyers in 7. Maybe Kate Smith. They'll play God Bless America in Game 7 in the dressing room in Pittsburgh for Game 7, because Pittsburgh will have the home game. There's no God Bless America in the national anthem out on the ice.
I'm going to go full chicken again, and for the second time in a row, and go Pittsburgh in 7.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with you. Yeah, I may have to disown you. Are we going to pick every series in 7 games with the exception of Colorado by the time we get there?
No, the teams are close. Neil just talked about how close this is. We talk about this. Like the league, just look at the standings. The standings are so tight. I mean, you have a team, Columbus, 92 points, missed the playoffs. And, you know, if they're in, what are they at? I just think it's reflective of the league. And when you have teams that are this tight and the competitive margins are real thin, I don't think there's anything wrong with a little bit of bok.
Well, I was really referring to Neil specifically, but I'm going to go 6 games in this series. And for me, there's something about being young and stupid with the Flyers that I'm going to jump on that bandwagon. And I think they take out Crosby, Letang, Carlson, and Malkin, and they do so in 6 games. So with that, we're now going to move over to the Atlantic Division and the first place Buffalo Sabres. Wait a minute, I got to clean my ears here because I can't believe I just said that. Against the Boston Bruins, who finished wild card 1. This is the 9th time that these two teams will meet in the postseason. The Bruins have won 5 out of the previous 8. The last time they met was in the opening round of 2010. The Bruins won that in 6 games. Bruins also won 3 out of 4 games between the clubs this year, 2 of those coming in overtime. We all know that the Sabres are in the postseason for the first time since 2011, and they're playing against a team that I think took a lot of people by surprise under the tutelage of Marco Sturm, first-year head coach behind the bench for the Bruins. Both of these teams have had a lot of scoring by committee. And, of course, you've got the big guns and David Pastrnak and Morgan Geekie for Boston and Tage Thompson and Alex Tuck for the Buffalo Sabres. But a lot of great supporting cast scoring this year for the Bruins. Pavel Zacha, Victor Arvidsson done great jobs, and Josh Stone for the Buffalo Sabres. And you can keep going on the list from there. But one thing that I'm looking at here, Neil, and I'm going to start with you. The Bruins, the second most penalized team in the NHL. They were short more than anybody else, and they're penalty killing 24th. And that's something they've got to clean up in the series.
Oh, they sure do. And Buffalo's going to take advantage of that. Listen, I think that Buffalo's too strong for Boston this year. It's not like as if Buffalo's crept up on us in the last little while. They've been doing this since early December. Every time you think maybe they'll slow down, they really don't. I think that they're deep. They're confident in themselves. They've got the building is full behind them. I just think Buffalo's too strong for Boston. Boston has had a great year. I give Marco Sturm all the credit in the world for getting blood out of a stone with this team. I mean, he really has got total buy-in from all his players. And they've done as well as you could possibly hope. But you're right, Vic, in pointing out they're the second most penalized team in the league, and yet their penalty killing is 24th. And that's going to creep up on them. If they take penalties against this team, who's got all these offensive weapons, they're going to be in trouble. So I'm going to go, and I know you're going to be surprised, Buffalo in 5.
Craig, be still my heart.
Vic, you're speechless. Like what happened? Did the chicken get your tongue? Oh, chickens don't have tongues. Anyway, all kidding aside, it's interesting. The big bad Bruins, we talk about Boston, how they want to play, and they established that they were going to be more competitive. They were going to be that heavy, in your face type team. But I think that the penalty killing, watching them over the course of the year, that is something that when they try to play that way, it ends up burning them. So if you can't be who you are, then what are you? And I think to Neil's point about Buffalo and how well they've played, Buffalo's blue line is excellent. Rasmus Dahlin's a superstar. Matthias Samuelsson has played so well. Bowen Byram has been exceptional on that team. And so you look at a blue line, Owen Power has really found his way. It's a really good blue line. They got lots of firepower up front. They got lots of depth. They got lots of balance. I'm picking Buffalo in 6. There's nothing better, if you ask teams, than going and beating Boston in a series right in their own building. So that's why I'm picking Buffalo to win in 6.
Craig, I agree with you there. I think the fact that the franchise has not been there in 15 years doesn't matter because none of these players were there back in 2011. And I don't think that this stage is going to be too big for the Sabres. And I like them in 6 as well. Craig, we're going to start off with you on this last series in the Eastern Conference where the Tampa Bay Lightning, second in the Atlantic, facing off against the Montreal Canadiens. This is their 5th playoff meeting. The Lightning have won 3 of the first 4. Last time they met, 2021 Stanley Cup Final that the Lightning won in 5 games. That coming on July 7th. That was the back end of the pandemic. This season, Montreal won the season series 2-1-1. And Pierce Canadiens have picked up right where they left off last season. They've actually taken a step up, 100-point team this year. A lot of offense, very dynamic team with Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, Juraj Slafkovsky, Ivan Davidov, and Lane Hudson. And, of course, you go against the superstars of Tampa Bay, Nikita Kucherov, Braden Point, Brandon Hagel, and Jake Gensel. But a couple of key defensemen that are in question in terms of this series. First of all, we already know that Noah Dobson is going to be out. David Reinbacher has been called up for the Canadiens. And what is the status of Victor Hedman, who has been out due to personal reasons and has not played a game since the 19th of March? Key in net, Andre Vasilevsky, you know exactly what you're getting, 2-time Stanley Cup champion. But remember Sam Montembeault a year ago? Not part of the equation this time between Jakub Dobish and Jacob Fowler. But something that I'm really looking forward to here. And Craig, we've heard all season about how the Lightning wanted to get themselves tougher. Maybe it was a reaction to the Florida Panthers beating up on them in consecutive seasons. And they turned out to be the most penalized team in the NHL this year and led the league with 44 fighting majors. But guess what? The 5th most penalized team in the NHL are the Montreal Canadiens. And I think that the last regular season game we saw between these two clubs, Montreal said, hey, we're not taking your crap. We know that you're tougher, but we can stand up to you as well.
I think Montreal may have done a disservice to themselves because the last 2 games they played Tampa Bay, one in Tampa Bay and then the one you're referring to in Montreal. They showed that not only were they capable of beating Tampa Bay, they beat them pretty good. And then they stood up to the challenges there, which also means that Tampa Bay knows exactly what they're up against. And Montreal, I think, takes penalties because of where they find themselves against bigger, stronger players and on the wrong side. Defensively, Montreal is not very good. Dobish has been unbelievable. When we know how good Suzuki and Slafkovsky, Caulfield, we know no Dobson. Alexander Carrier's out too, and he's another big part of it. He comes back. So you got two right shot defensemen are out. You're putting a left shot guy over there. You got Reinbacher, who's just a kid. And let's just go. Vasilevsky, McDonough, Chernik, Point, Kucherov, Cirelli, Hagel, Corey Perry. And this team is built to win. This team is good enough to win. But when you start to look at where their advantages are, I think they're significant. Dobish, to me, is going to have to be Yaroslav Halak 2010 like for Montreal to do it, because Montreal bleeds chances. And it's one thing to bleed chances, but a team such as the Tampa Bay Lightning, they create so much on their own. So if you're going to bleed them and they're getting their own, that becomes a little bit lopsided and tilted in Tampa Bay's favor in that regard.
You know, the one factor that we don't talk about, and I think, Craig, you and Vic have both touched on almost everything here, but one thing you haven't touched on is the coaching. You got John Cooper going against Marty St. Louis. Now, Marty St. Louis has done a wonderful job in Montreal. Yeah. You got to give him all the credit in the world, but he's not John Cooper. And John Cooper has proven year after year after year, no matter what team you give him, he'll find a way to win with it. He'll find a way to tweak it and move with it. That's just one thing I wanted to say. I think that their offense is second to none for Tampa Bay, that is. They've got them on goaltending with Vasilevsky. You guys just discussed that. I don't see Montreal winning this series.
No. I don't either, Neil. I don't either. I think it's a question now. Can Montreal get it to 6? Could they possibly get it to 6? I think they can. They're a competitive enough team, but it's going to be really tough. It might be one of those ones where the series is over in 5, but Montreal gets an extra game because they win one in overtime. They get great goaltending in one game, and Tampa Bay has to do it. So that's my pick. It's Tampa Bay in 6 with a little bit of a miracle win for Montreal in one of those games. But I just don't see how Montreal can beat Tampa Bay 4 times.
Vic, I'm staying out of the chicken coop on this one. I really am, and I'm going to agree with Craig. And although I never like to say that a team will win a series on the road, I know, Craig, it's great when a team does it. I know how it feels to win a series on the road, but I do think that Tampa will win this one in the Bell Center in Game 6.
I agree with you, and of course, that Corey Perry is on the Lightning guarantees that Tampa Bay will make the finals, since he's been there, 5 out of the last 6 years. So I like Tampa Bay in 6 as well. Before we turn over to the Western Conference, a couple of GM notes that have taken place over the last 24 hours. As a matter of fact, this one breaking Friday morning. Patrik Allvin out in Vancouver. He has been the general manager there since Jim Rutherford brought him aboard in January of 2022. But the Canucks, disaster this year, last overall in the NHL. Craig, I'll start with you. Thoughts?
Feels like Patrik Allvin is being thrown on the tarmac. Jim Rutherford's the head of this, and Jim Rutherford's the president. I don't start in the middle. I go right to the top. And, Jim Rutherford, you brought in Patrik Allvin. Jim Rutherford's heavily involved in the operations, right? Obviously they make a change. I'm not here to advocate for anybody to be let go of their job, but I think the Vancouver Canucks, led by the president, have been a disaster. The buck stops there, and that's where I put it.
I don't think you can disagree with that, Craig, in any way, shape, or form. I mean, Jimmy went in there and brought in his own guy from where he just came from Pittsburgh Penguins, and now it hasn't worked out for them. They're a kooky organization, and they always have been ever since the Aquilinis owned that thing. You never know what you're going to get from year to year with them, and they've hit a low point now. I don't understand why this guy ended up with his head on the chopping block. I agree with you. I don't get it, but I can tell you that any seasoned guy is going to be very cautious about going to Vancouver. Of course, it wouldn't surprise me with Vancouver that they'll put a woman as the GM, that they would go in a different direction from everybody else and decide that, we're going to have the first female GM. That wouldn't surprise me because of the things they've done in the past. I would find it hard to believe that somebody sitting out there that's got experience, that's been around for a while, would want to walk into that situation?
I think there's reputational damage in Vancouver. And I think if you're the owner, you now are not just talking about who your GM is going to be, who's going to lead your hockey operations. You're talking about the tarnish that's on the franchise.
Yeah.
In New Jersey, Sunny Mehta is the new general manager of the Devils. He spent 6 seasons as the assistant GM in Florida. He was also their head of analytics. His career actually started with the Devils back in 2014. He's also had stints in Washington and with the Coyotes. Neil, I'm going to start with you here because this is an analytics guy. And, of course, we all know Kyle Dubas was hired in Toronto based on his analytics. And considering both of you have such deep scouting backgrounds, are the numbers that important that it has to almost supersede just what you see on the ice?
No, it's something that illuminates what you see on the ice. That's what analytics should be, is an illuminator of things that you already know, that your brain is telling you, that your experience over many, many years is telling you. Analytics is a tool that is an aid, is something that supplements the way you already do it. And, you know, they can say that Kyle Dubas is the way of the future because look at what he's done with Pittsburgh. Well, what has he done with Pittsburgh? They're going to make the playoffs this year. That's great. It's wonderful. They got a lot of guys that they signed or traded for that are having wonderful years, that other teams discarded. And now they've come in and they've done well for Pittsburgh. That's great. But at the end of the day, your goal is to win the Stanley Cup. And that's going to be won the old-fashioned way. It's not going to be won through analytics. And I can tell you something, Bill Zito didn't win 2 cups in a row and 3 finals in a row from analytics. He won it from knowing his roster, from knowing what he needed, from talking to his coach, from getting his coach to give him every bit of input he had of the way they want to play the game, what kind of game could they play with the personnel that they have, and then supplement that group. And he didn't do it. Maybe analytics was there to help him along the way to say, yeah, well, be careful about this or that or something else. But at the end of the day, I know Bill Zito wasn't going into Sunny Mehta and saying, well, who should I trade for? The deadline's coming.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, the illumination comment is the right way to put it. Listen, I say this all the time. Given a choice of having more tools to make a better decision or having less tools, what are you going to do? No person's going to say, I want less tools. Everybody's looking to try to find out, okay, what can this provide to us so that we can make the best decisions possible? That's what it is. And hey, listen, give Sunny Mehta a lot of credit. You know what he wrote? He wrote a data-centric analytics narrative to the job. Good for him. I'm not going to fault him for getting the job. But at the end of it all, like to Neil's point, Paul Maurice said last week when he was in Toronto, because there was a lot of talk about Sonny coming to Toronto because of what Keith Pelly said about we need somebody that's data-centric. But Paul Maurice, he talked about, he was really helpful. We got Kevin Stenlin and A.J. Greer and Thomas Noshik. Well, that's the reason the Panthers won the Stanley Cup, It wasn't because of Barkov and Bobrovsky and Mikkola and Forsling and Reinhart and Bennett. It wasn't because of those guys. It was because of Stenlin. And I just read through that comment by Paul. Like he's giving them props, but give me a break. Just give me a break is what I'd say. Here's what I'll say. Good luck to the New Jersey Devils. Good luck to Sunny Mehta. Because if Sunny Mehta doesn't surround himself with people that understand hockey, he's not going to have success. Vic, I want to add one thing here too. Okay? People might be tuning in. Oh, look at Neil and Craig like they're such dinosaurs. Neil and I have data backgrounds. I have an economics, international finance degree, statistics background. Neil has a data. So anybody who wants to try to tell us that we don't have data backgrounds or we don't respect data, just do your research on us as people and what our educations are and what our backgrounds are. Because what we're talking about isn't about dismissing analytics. It's about understanding where it fits.
Yes.
That is a full froth from both of you there. And that takes us to the midway point of the show, and reminding you that this is the NHL Wraparound 2026 Stanley Cup Preview Show, brought to you by UBS Financial Services, Inc. Let's head over to the Western Conference, where the President's Trophy winning Colorado Avalanche will meet Wild Card 2, that is the LA Kings. This is their third all-time playoff meeting. The clubs have split the previous two, but these series took place about a quarter century ago, so no bearing on the present. The Avs won the season series this year 3-0, outscoring the Kings 13-5. A couple of notes here to look at. Kings goaltend. Darcy Kuemper won the Cup with the Avs in 2022, but Anton Forsberg has been the guy down the stretch for LA. The Kings 11-6-6 under DJ Smith, and perhaps of note, they are up almost 3/4 of a goal more per game in terms of their offense than they were under Jim Hiller. A lot of that having to do with the acquisition of Artemi Panarin from the New York Rangers. The Kings, a league record 33 overtime games, and they lost 20. So if it goes to extra time, I'm not liking their odds, even though this will be played 5-on-5. But for this talent-laden Colorado Avalanche team, 27th in the power play, which is probably one of the most baffling stats in the NHL, but their penalty killing is first, and the Kings special teams 28th on the power play and 30th on the PK. So maybe a little get well here on the special teams for the Avs. Neil, we'll start with you.
I give LA no chance whatsoever in this series. I think Colorado's going to wipe them out. It's going to be very quick, and I'm going to go 4 straight for Colorado. I don't think there's a hope in hell for the LA Kings going into this one. I really, there's not much more to say than that. I think that they're better than them in every single category all over the ice. And McKinnon and Makar and the rest of that group, Nikushkin and all of them, they are so hungry. They want it so bad. I mean, guys, they've done it from when the gate opened till the gate closed all season long. And I don't think they're going to stop it. In fact, I think right now they're probably frothing at the mouth to get the playoffs going, because they want that Stanley Cup that they won in 22. Most of the guys are still there. They want to feel it again. Jared Bednar wants to feel it again. I think LA just snuck into the playoffs, but that's probably as good as it's going to get for them this year.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Neil. I mean, this is a juggernaut. They're a wagon in Colorado. And, and the power play, Vic, has found its way post-Olympics. They add Kadri, that's helped a little bit. I mean, he looks like he'll be back for the playoffs. But the additions they've made have really fortified their team. And the goaltending's been outstanding. They win the Jennings. They're not just a good penalty-killing team. They're a good defensive team. They're a good offensive team. Like, when we say no chance, like, there is no chance. It's just not going to happen. Like, it's simply put, I'm with Neil. 4 straight, over, finished, done. The Avs move on to the second round, well rested.
I think I'll buy a third broom then, because I agree. I don't see the Kings winning a game here. I think that they made the playoffs when they were sitting back for a large portion of the season. This is the big game for them, but they don't stand up anywhere, as Neil and Craig, you both pointed out. They don't stand up anywhere with the Avs, and I see this in 4 also. But the more intriguing series in the Central is the 2-3 between Dallas and Minnesota. It's their third playoff meeting. The Stars won in 2016 and 2023 in the opening rounds, both in 6 games. The last series that the Wild won was in 2015. In the opening round against St. Louis with Mike Yeo as their head coach. Season series this year, Dallas 2-1-1. Both teams won their home games. Minnesota winning one in overtime on March 21st. The star quality on both of these teams, pretty high. Jason Robertson, Wyatt Johnston, Mikko Rantanen, and Miro Heiskanen, who is expected to be back for this opening round series. He has been out with a lower body injury. Kirill Kaprizov, Matt Boldy, Quinn Hughes, Brock Faber. I think there's a lot there for both of these teams. These are 2 of the top 3 power plays in the NHL. Dallas second, Minnesota third. But a couple of things that I'm wondering here is For Jake Ottinger, goaltender for the Dallas Stars, is there a little bit of a motivation factor here after being pulled in Game 6 by Peter DeBoer in that conference final against the Oilers? Gave up 2 goals in the first 7 or so minutes, and it was Casey DeSmith to finish the game. And is there a little bit of undercurrent here that might be working in Ottinger's favor as this series gets underway?
Jake has been to the Western Conference Final 3 consecutive seasons. So I think as a competitor and as a real top-notch goaltender, what you want to do is you want to push through to that next level. That's what the good competitors do. That's what Jake is, and I think that's what his focus is. I don't think he's worried about Game 6. He's put that behind him from last year. Mm-hmm. Billy Guerin, and you talk about Minnesota. The last time they won a playoff round was 2015. Bill Guerin is not, he wasn't fiddling with the dials here. And so to me, you go and make the big trade for Quinn Hughes. He went and added size and bulk at the deadline because he said, we want to go deep. We want to be a hard team to play against. And I think that's what he's done. And more than that, I think he's put it right in the players' hands. He said, like, what do you want to be? Do you want to be a game where people go, oh, we're playing the Minnesota Wild. Oh, we get to go to Minnesota? Oh, I hear they have wild rice soup there. Like, what do you want to be if you're the Minnesota Wild? So it's up to the players. I think Billy's done everything that he possibly could do to put the onus right on the players. And I think this is up to the players to get in there and grind because 2015 is a long time ago. 2015 winning a playoff series, I mean, it's not as bad as the Buffalo Sabres missing the playoffs for 14 straight years. But Billy is looking at this team. Now, I asked the question in this regard. If they don't win this series, what is ahead for the Minnesota Wild?
I like all your points, and I think that it's going to be a great series. Just as we said that Pittsburgh and Philadelphia was going to be a great series because the teams are so close. I don't like the way the Minnesota Wild came down the stretch as compared to Dallas. And I watch Dallas just, every night like you guys do. I think they're playing better now. They got more skills spread over more guys, it seems, than it's so concentrated on Minnesota. Kirill Kaprizov and Quinn Hughes. And, they've got some great players, Eriksson Ek and Matt Boldy. I like Ryan Hartman. Zuccarello seems like he's the ever-ready bunny. He goes on forever. But I like the way Dallas is playing. And I think Dallas with the new coach, with Gulletson, being a new old coach, like the great good adventures of old Christine, I think that they're going to win this series. I think it's going to be tough. I'm going to tell you right now, guys, I'm in the coop on this one. I'm right in the chicken coop on this one and going Dallas in 7.
Okay, well, Neil, you're in the coop, right? Like, I'm going way deep in the coop, okay? Like, right into the hen house. Because I'm going Minnesota in 7 in overtime.
Whoa.
And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why, why I think the absence of Rupa Hintz gives the Minnesota Wild that edge to get past the Dallas Stars.
And Vic, let me ask you this. How many extra bonus points do you get if it goes to Game 7, overtime, Minnesota win? I mean, I think right there he's won this thing. If he gets that right, I think he's won the whole thing.
And Craig, the overtime winning goal coming from one of the guys that beefed up Minnesota's roster, Michael McCarron, right?
Yeah, it could be Michael McCarron. Why not have how about Nick Foligno from Marcus Foligno?
Why not? Why not? Great point. I happen to side with Neil on this. Not going overtime in Game 7, but I do think that this one is going the distance. This series has been out there since January, so it probably should go 7 games. And I'm going to side with the Dallas Stars on this one, especially because I picked them to win the Stanley Cup back in October. So with that, we now move to the Pacific Division, where the Vegas Golden Knights finished first. Now, their opponent will be crossing over from the Central, and that is the Utah Mammoth. So you talk about a tale of 2 different franchises. Vegas has won 6 division titles since they came into the NHL back in 2017, 2018. And Utah is their first playoff appearance since the bubble in 2020. So, needless to say, haven't met before. Utah actually won 2 out of 3 during the course of the regular season, but this was before the coaching change. And Vegas is coming in on a roll. They have a 10-game point streak. They are 7-0-1 under John Tortorella. They have scored 33 goals in those 8 games since the coaching change. One thing that I'm going to be very interested to see, how does Torts use his goaltending? He's got the history with Carter Hart, but Adin Hill won the Stanley Cup for the Golden Knights in 2023. Karel Vejmelka will be carrying the load for the Utah Mammoth. A lot of offense on both of these teams. For Utah, it's Dylan Guenther, it's Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, J.J. Peterka. And for the Golden Knights, Jack Eichel, Mitch Marner, who's going to the playoffs again while the Maple Leafs aren't, Captain Mark Stone, and Pavel Dorofeev, who had another big season for Vegas, who may come under the radar in a lot of these fantasy pools. Something to look out for here also. The Golden Knights been the least penalized team in the NHL for 5 straight seasons. Their special teams, 6th on the power play, 7th on the penalty kill. Utah, 18th on the power play, and 19th on the penalty kill. Neil, you first.
I think Vegas is going to school Utah in this one. I think that that coaching change turns out to be a brilliant move by the Vegas Golden Knights. I didn't think so at the time. I mean, I didn't think it was a bad move, but I didn't think it would give you this kind of a return. I just think Vegas is going to be too strong for Utah. Utah obviously has no playoff experience whatsoever, nor does their coach, who did a good job, Tournier, who's been there a long time. I think they're thrilled to go to the playoffs in Utah, and I think that's going to be enough for them this year. I think they're going to say, well, if we go out to Vegas, we've had a good year. We've had a good stepping stone for the future. Vegas, on the other hand, their owner wants to win. He's been trying to win since day one, and he's done a lot of it. And I think he's going to continue with this one. I'm going to say Vegas is going to win this series in 5.
You know, you think about John Tortorella going in there, and one thing that Kelly McCrimmon and the Vegas Golden Knights have been from day one is bold. They haven't been afraid to be bold. They don't sit on their hands. If they recognize that change is necessary, it can be coaching, it can be players. That's how they operate. They operate what I call with a cold-blooded, dispassionate approach. And, you know, they're loyal. As long as you're performing for the Vegas Golden Knights, they're going to be loyal to you. The minute that they feel that's changing, they make changes, and they're not afraid to do it. Obviously, bringing in John Tortorella, a very experienced coach, helps. I love what John said. He goes, I don't need to change anything. I need to just encourage what they're doing well. But the other thing that John got was way better goaltending. Their goaltending was at the bottom. You know, The reason Bruce Cassidy doesn't have a job anymore is because Adin Hill was so bad. And John Tortorella, who pays attention to the league, he knows that. Carter Hart's his guy. Kelly McCrimmon recognized that back when they signed Carter Hart. Yep. They understood that, hey, listen, as much as Adin Hill helped us and we won a cup, but keep in mind, Adin Hill came in after the other 2 goaltenders got hurt. He wasn't the number 1 goalie, and I give Adin Hill full marks. But Adin Hill has been terrible. And I don't think Adin Hill's going to see the net, and I think Carter Hart's their guy. I see Vegas winning this 1 in 5 as well.
I have to agree with you. The Golden Knights are the oldest team in the NHL. They're in win now mode, and I see them winning this series in 5 as well. The final series, 2-3 in the Pacific, Edmonton against Anaheim. It's their 3rd playoff meeting. The Oilers won in 5 in 2006, route to the Stanley Cup final, and the Ducks won in 7 in the conference semifinals back in 2017. Oilers won 2 of 3 during the course of the regular season. What more can you say about Connor McDavid wins his 6th Art Ross trophy, 138 points, and really carried this team down the stretch with Leon Draisaitl out. They're hoping to have him back at some point during the first round of the playoffs. But one of the questions, will they have enough support scoring? Because we all know about Zach Hyman, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Evan Bouchard in the back line, but will Matt Savoy, Vasily Podkolzin, and Jack Roslovic be able to supplement what their big guns can give them. Something to look for, Oilers' #1 power play in the NHL against the Ducks' 26th ranked penalty kill. Goaltending, always been a question mark for the Oilers, and this year, no different. It looks like it's going to be Connor Ingram this year. Tristan Jarry really hasn't done a very good job since the trade coming over from Pittsburgh against Lucas Dostal. Here's an X factor that I'm going to throw out there, Craig. Jay Woodcroft, former Oilers head coach, and of course, Chris Knobloch took over for him a couple of years back. He is now the Ducks' assistant. So is this something that can genuinely be a benefit for the Ducks in this series, or does it simply not matter?
Listen, you talk about, what are you going to need for scoring? We'll find out in the second round how the depth of the Oilers scoring translates here. Joel Quenneville's won 3 Stanley Cups. Jay Woodcroft, I think, is a non-factor here. You can put Scotty Bowman behind the bench. You can put Glenn Sather behind the bench. This is a bad defensive team. It's a bad penalty kill. The only thing I'm going to say here, I know that it's a 4 out of 7. Could there be like they have in curling where they shake hands after game 3 to just say we don't need to play anymore? Because this series could end in 3. And I will encourage anybody that watches this show, pick Connor McDavid. I picked this series in 4 straight. Connor McDavid might average 4 points a game. So all the poolies out there, get your points early on McDavid because he's going to light up this team. And Draisaitl returning, we talk about no chance for the LA Kings. I think there's less of a no chance for the Anaheim Ducks against Edmonton. And, Neil, you call it the pathetic division. Connor McDavid said it was a pillow fight out there. Well, here's what the Edmonton Oilers can do. They can rest easy knowing that they're going to be playing in the second round.
How can you argue any of that? And especially the way the Ducks came down the stretch, right? I mean, the Ducks looked in midseason like they were really something, and then all of a sudden we had the Gudas incident in Toronto, and they don't seem to have recovered from that. And maybe it's just timing I'm looking at, but they haven't nearly been as good. The Oilers have the one thing that's going to kill them eventually, which is their goaltending, but not in this round. I think in this round, they're going to be fine. I'm not even going anywhere near the chicken coop. In fact, I'm not even going on to the farm for this one. I'm going to say the Oilers in 4 and stick with my buddy.
Yeah, you know what, Neil? Sometimes I like to get organic chicken, right? I'll just buy regular supermarket chicken in this one.
Tyson chicken.
Yeah.
I'm going to give the Ducks one game in this because this could get sloppy enough where you get a high-scoring game and it's last shot wins. But I agree with both of you. The defensive structure of the Ducks has been an abomination as we've come down the stretch. But I think maybe they'll win a game here. And I think much like we're going to see with Utah, I think they're happy to be there this year. But I think this series ends in 5 games in favor of the Oilers. So with that, we have concluded our 8th series, but just got a few questions really quickly before we let you go, Craig. We have the playoff salary cap this year. It's $95.5 million. Both of you come from the GM world, obviously, although, Neil, there was no salary cap when you were with the Rangers. But is this playoff cap significant or much to do about nothing?
I think it's got some significance. I mean, what they were trying to get away from the league, and the players and the league agreed upon it, right, is that you don't want to be without players that get hurt during the regular season. Long-term injury came in, but it was the flat cap that forced teams to be creative on the long-term injury. And, when the cap was going up $1 million a year, that, there was no room. And the players are getting bumps and the teams don't have that. So they looked at a path that they thought they could utilize, and they utilized it well. There's always going to be loopholes in the CBA, and the teams found it. all that's happened here is they closed the loophole. I think they've done it in a meaningful way that's fair and balanced. And I think we saw that at the deadline where teams are going, well, okay, if I go and trade for this guy, what does it mean when I start to put together my playoff roster? So I don't think it's much ado about nothing. I think it came out of something where teams were creative, found a loophole that became necessary in the flat cap era. And I think now it's been rectified.
I agree with Craig. I don't think there's much more you can say than that. I think that's what they were trying to do, and that's what they've done. And, you're going to get loopholes in everything. In every part of society, you get loopholes, and it's those people who try to exploit those loopholes that end up winning. You did it in our era, and they're doing it still now, and they'll do it in the next era. And the league will just continue to oversee it and continue to close off those loopholes, and I think that's what they've done.
Let's put the business aside, get to the fun stuff. Player who uses this year's playoffs as his own personal coming out party. Maybe a player that has been good, but now is really going to be able to showcase his talents on the biggest stage. And I think I'll go first here to give you guys a couple of minutes to kind of ponder this over here. I think I'm going to take a skater and I'm going to take a goalie. My skater is Tim Stützle. And while Brady Tkachuk was out, this guy was an absolute stud for the Ottawa Senators, and I think he's going to become more of a household name, particularly in this first-round series against the Carolina Hurricanes. And my goaltender is Carter Hart, who I think the Flyers were looking towards when he was there before he ran into his legal troubles. I think now, under Torts, in Vegas, new beginning, high expectation for the Golden Knights. Carter Hart's my guy there.
Okay, I'll take this. I'm going to go to Rasmus Dahlin. Rasmus Dahlin is a top, but when you're not in the playoffs and you're not playing meaningful games, it's easy to not overlook him, but it's easy to kind of miss his brilliance. And he does everything in the game. He's physical too. Like you don't see that in today's NHL defenseman for the most part. He's physical. He's edgy. He gets in after you. So with the Buffalo Sabres having a great season, Rasmus Dahlin is the guy. Now I'm going to go to a goalie too here. I'm going to go to goalie. I'm going Scott Wedgwood. Scott Wedgwood was outstanding this year. I think Mackenzie Blackwood's a really good goaltender, but Mackenzie Blackwood wasn't very good last year in the playoffs. And Scott Wedgwood, to me, this could be his coming out party in the playoffs.
I'm glad you said him, Craig, because I was going to say him, Scott Wedgwood. I mean, he's led the league this year in goals against and other statistics. He's going to be up for the Vezina with his numbers anyways. And I don't know if he'll get the votes. But I'll switch from that and go to a couple of surprising names for you guys. Old names that have been bandied about a lot. I think they're going to prove their worth in this year's playoffs. I'll go first with a player. Mitch Marner is going to prove himself a playoff player in this year's playoffs. He's got everything it takes to be a good playoff player. He's going to sit behind Jack Eichel, which is what he likes to do. He doesn't want to be the number one guy. He likes to sit in there behind Austin Matthews, sit in there now behind Jack Eichel. I think he'll be terrific for John Tortorella in the playoffs. And the other guy that I think is going to be all of a sudden stick his tongue out at everybody is going to be Stuart Skinner in Pittsburgh. And I think he's going to play terrific against the Flyers. Who knows how much longer the Penguins can go on after the Flyers, but I think he's going to be terrific in that first round.
Neil, team with the most pressure.
I think the team with the most pressure is probably going to be Colorado because their expectations are so high. I know I expect them to win the whole thing. And I think that's what they expect of themselves. And I think you can see that in McKinnon every night. You can see it in Makar. You can see it in Jared Bednar every night. They have very high expectations. I think they put a lot of pressure on themselves. And I think they'll continue to put a lot of pressure on themselves in this playoff run.
Yeah, and I think as the playoffs go on and they get deeper, that pressure. But I don't think there's any greater pressure than on the Minnesota Wild. You haven't won a playoff round since 2015. You're up against one of the best teams in the National Hockey League. You think about that matchup, Dallas and Minnesota. Billy Guerin has done so much to push that team ahead. And I'll even go back. I mean, the buyouts of Ryan Suter and Zach Parise, I mean, that was bold. And trying to get to a point where, you could take advantage of salary cap room. He had to wait and he had to manage it, and the team was good. And so I think when you've been that long without success and your manager has done what he has done, I think he's put the onus right on the players. And I think for the Minnesota Wild, the pressure starts on game one of the playoffs for the Minnesota Wild. I don't think it starts for the Colorado Avalanche until they get deeper into the playoffs.
I agree with Neil here. And something that you've always said that kind of stuck in my mind about Nathan MacKinnon is he would rather die than lose.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think that translates pretty well here into the pressure that the Avs will face as being the President's Trophy winner. And I'm going to extend that over to the player with the most pressure. And I do believe that that is MacKinnon as well, because of the burden that he is going to carry if this club does not perform as expected.
I have a quick question on MacKinnon, and it's to both of you guys. So you talked about he'd rather die than lose. Do you think he'd make a good Columbus Blue Jacket?
I think he'd change the entire culture of the Columbus Blue Jackets by himself.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen before with one player.
I know you've seen it, and you won. And again, you were bold, Neil. You're not just a good friend; you're somebody that I have immense respect for. And I mean, you were bold. I say this all the time: if you're not going to be bold in this league, then just be happy. The paychecks will come in, and twice a month, and you can do that. But if you're serious about winning, and we talked about MacKinnon, you got to be bold. So you saw it, and people, oh yeah, well, how are they going to do this? You showed them, Neil.
Who's your player, Craig?
With the most pressure?
Yeah.
I think it's Connor Ingram, because I think that the Edmonton Oilers have been to the Stanley Cup final the last 2 years. McDavid is wired. Like, there's only one thing that matters to him. The only thing, we talk about MacKinnon, McDavid's the same. And it's about the Stanley Cup. He signed that contract extension that kicks in next year with the whole idea that I want to give opportunity to the team to have flexibility. They made the trade for Jari. It's a terrible trade. And give him credit for getting Connor Ingram. Connor Ingram's come in there, and now, imagine that you get a guy in a trade that, was in the minors, and he's going to be your go-to guy. I mean, to me, that's a lot of pressure, because the expectations in Edmonton with Connor McDavid as your captain, pretty significant.
Let me add one thing to that, Vic. They got both their goalies went through waivers.
Yeah.
Connor Ingram and Tristan Jari both went through waivers.
Isn't it something that none of us picked McDavid as the player with the most pressure entering these playoffs?
After what he did during the regular season, after what he did at the Olympics, after what he did, Vic, to your point earlier, down the stretch without Leon Draisaitl, he's just salivating at the opportunity to get playing and try to deliver. Billie Jean King said a pressure is a privilege, and some players wear it a little bit differently. Neil, Mark Messier. Wayne Gretzky said that, he told me this years ago, he said that Mark Messier loved playing in the hard, big games. His big saying was, let's just go play. I think McDavid's found that place. Other players get a little bit tight. Guys like Messier, they relish. It's like, what, game 7, game 6, we got to go win in New Jersey? Okay, I got this.
Yeah.
Finals picks. Neil?
I'm right sitting over an egg trying to keep it warm when I make these picks. I'm going Tampa Bay versus Colorado.
Who wins?
Colorado.
Okay. Greg?
Well, I'm going to be the fox in the henhouse, and I'm going to agree with Neil. It's exactly how I see it. And I think that Tampa Bay is well positioned to get to the final, and it'll be like 2022. Colorado wins a cup again versus the Tampa Bay Lightning.
I'm going to have to stick with my Stanley Cup winner that I had picked back in October. That'll be the Dallas Stars, but I did pick them against Florida. Last time I checked, they did not make this show, so I'm going to pick them to defeat the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Vic, I want to say something to you real quick. As you say that, you're going to stick with your pick in October. A lot of people might not know who Zsa Zsa Gabor was, but she didn't just stick with the husband if she felt that he had outlived his usefulness. So I admire you for sticking with the Dallas Stars, but you know, Zsa Zsa went through, I think, about 8 husbands. Don't be afraid to change your mind, Vic. You don't have to stick to something in October.
But if Dallas winds up winning this, I'm going to be happy that I did. And if I'm wrong, well, I usually am anyway. So no harm, no foul. Craig, thanks so much for joining us for our Stanley Cup preview. It's always a blast. You bring so much insight. And I know that Neil and I just love having you on, and hopefully we'll do it again in the second round.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can count on it. And I love doing it with you guys. You asked, and the answer is yes.
Well, we're going to come back and find out who's clucking their wings after the first round.
Thanks again, Craig.
Thank you.
Partner, I'm wondering whether we need to just make a chicken as part of our new logo.
I think we do, especially when the playoffs come, because if you're going full chicken, and by the way, everybody, what we mean by that is I think you're a chicken when you go 7. Everybody can say every series, oh, I think it'll go 7. I think it'll go 7. Well, that's sitting right on the fence. I call it being a chicken, and I do the chicken quite a bit, but I think the chicken should be part of this thing. And maybe for round 2, let's bring a chicken on for Craig.
You work on that.
All right.
All right. Hey, here's the playoff schedule this weekend. In Canada, all games are on the various Sportsnet platforms. Locals will cover in the U.S., but for the national coverage in the States, Saturday, ESPN triple header, 3 o'clock Eastern, Ottawa at Carolina, 5:30 Minnesota at Dallas, and 8 o'clock Philadelphia at Pittsburgh. And on Sunday, TNT kicks off the coverage at 3 o'clock with LA and Colorado, followed at 5:45 by Montreal and Tampa Bay. ESPN during the evening, 7:30 Boston and Buffalo, and at 10 o'clock Utah at Vegas. And the last series to start will be Anaheim and Edmonton. That will air on ESPN2 on Monday at 10 o'clock. So with that, big thanks to Craig Button from TSN for joining us for this playoff preview. And thank you to UBS Financial Services, Inc. NHL Wraparound and UBS Financial Services, Inc. are not affiliated. UBS Financial Services, Inc. is a sponsor of NHL Wraparound. No other affiliation, relationship, or endorsement is made, suggested, intended, or should be implied or inferred between UBS and NHL Wraparound or any of the individuals or businesses and or their respective products and services appearing in this program.
And we want to thank all of our listeners, viewers out there. Please subscribe, like us, and also write a review if you get a chance, please. We like to read those. You can reach us individually at neil@nhlwraparound.com or vic@nhlwraparound.com. All of our podcasts, every different franchise we have, is available on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere else that you can possibly go. The Stanley Cup Challenge. We're going to have a bracket for the Stanley Cup Challenge that's coming out. You can also find us on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Radiate TV, along with being on buzzer.com, bzzr.com, a great new platform which we are on.
Before we get to our website and just close the show, word about that bracket challenge for the Stanley Cup. You can get into our league by logging in, bracketchallenge.nhl.com, click on leagues, and then search Wraparound. You'll see us there. So join us. We'll have a lot of fun with that. Our website is nhlwraparound.com. And Smith's Picks had its final installment on Thursday to wrap up the regular season. You went 1-2 for a 574, 319, 124, final record, your winning percentage was .625, which is pretty good. You would have been, I think, 9th overall in the NHL or 8th overall in the NHL.
A lot of games. So it's amazing that I really ended up picking that many games. When you look at it, there's over 1,000 games that I picked a winner for.
I can't believe I sat through every one of them. Just a quick note, we have 6 remaining spring cleanings to take care of, and they are going to air over the next couple of weeks during the first round. Also, teams that are eliminated during the playoffs will have their spring cleanings appear during Stanley Cup dates, and those will begin on Monday, April the 20th. So with that, Neil, let's get her going. This is what we wait for.
That sure is, and we can't wait for it. We can't wait to see it, get it started, and find out how many of these predictions that I just made I'm wrong.
Enjoy the weekend to kick off the Stanley Cup playoffs, and we will speak to you Monday on Stanley Cup Day.
Thanks for joining us on the NHL Wraparound podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date on all the NHL action.